Kevin, I want to ask you a general question. Going back to Nostradamus, or Edgar Cayce, or Jane Roberts, or yourself, or Gordon Michael Scallion, or Daniel Brinkley, or other intuitives, is there any common thread that one might explore that you see between all of these intuitives? Is there any common thing that seems to be true of most intuitives? Is there anything that links them together?
Well, I would suggest that the common denominators with intuitives is, for instance, Michael Brown examined, as a social scientist, examined the whole phenomena of channeling in his book called The Channeling Zone.
Mm-hmm.
And what he noticed as the common threads were that, one, all the intuitives, even though they came from diverse cultural backgrounds, different varying levels of education, all seem to present a continuity of a very similar worldview, if you will, sort of a common direction that humanity is taking. And above all else, even though the intuitives may have had very broad demographic backgrounds, they all seem to have a very intense desire to sort of improve the human condition through the use of their gifts, in particular when their gifts were at their peak ability.
Mm-hmm. Daniel Brinkley is an interesting case because I know Dan personally. I should tell you, you talk about channeling, and perhaps we ought to have a little conversation about that. I have always, Kevin, been shy of channelers, and the reason that I've been shy of them is that, not that I think all channeling is bunk, which is what some people conclude from my comments, but I've always felt that it simply allows too much room for fraud. It seems like anybody, I could apparently sink into a trance right now and become Borg from the 17th century with important information for modern-day Earth. And so I've always been just cautious about channeling because of that very reason, simply too much room for fraudulent activity. But on the other hand, I don't reject channeling totally either. So do you have any comments?
Well, yeah, I don't even feel I have to wax defensive. Some of the arguments are perfectly legitimate, and that's why I would point out, for instance, that Dr. Cayce had developed what he called the intuitive consensus method, where he might confer with yours truly and a number of other very gifted people, and he felt that where we had consensus with our intuitive insights, no matter what the vehicle, whether it was channeling or conscious clairvoyance or even novel uses of phenomena such as remote viewing,
sure,
or quite frankly, art, even astral projection,
sure, whereby
he felt that where we were in consensus was where the high level of the information was. Now, there's other elements that go into it. For instance, Edgar Cayce is probably the best documented psychic of the 20th century, and just the sincerity of his personality and the longevity of his particular career, of course, brings sort of an impeccability to him, and he's in many ways, he's like the litmus test for many intuitives. Other intuitives do work where they try to, for instance, they document the historical backgrounds of the entities that speak through, which then have implication for survival in the afterlife, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that, like any good consumerism, it's those intuitives who try to, if you will, create a community of individuals and then associate themselves with some of the more credible folks in the field, whether it's Dr. Cayce or the ARE. Those are the people who I think you can more or less rely upon, who have put themselves past the litmus test involving the issue of whether it's real or whether it's Memorex.
Real or Memorex. When we look at futurists, in some cases, Cayce did that kind of work, or we look at the Gordon Michael Scallion types, or yourself. I, too, I interview this wide range of people, from Ed Dames in remote viewing and many, I guess, just about every other remote viewer. Short of Ingo Swan, I need to get Ingo on. I've talked to everybody else, or whether I'm talking to Gordon, or I'm talking to Daniel, or I'm talking to so many others. Lori Toy is yet another. I could go on and on. I, too, find a commonality in what they believe. Some of them present the information in hard, scary form. Some are a little new agey, and they suggest that, well, yes, there are some big earth changes that are pending and are upon us soon, but that it will be an uplifting spiritual experience for humanity. And they sort of ignore the fact that several millions, if not billions, will not be uplifted at all. They won't be around at all if these earth changes occur. And so there are sort of two approaches to disseminating the information, even though it seems kind of common. What do you have to say? Do you foresee earth changes coming?
Well, I think we're amidst swimmingly right now seeing a great deal of the fulfillment of the Edgar Cayce prophecies. The core prophecy being what I call the Atlantean phenomena, where Cayce was just as a social prophet linked our dependency on technology to this specific period of time where there would be a crisis in the ecology. And if you look at, of course, the issues of global warming, if you look at unusual phenomena like El Nino, if you look at the abuse of different technologies, such as the dependency on things that expose us or make our culture vulnerable to things such as Y2K, that is all very, very much as though that we are souls from Atlantis, once again coping with the issue of our spirituality, our consciousness, and our flat-out dependency on such things as technology.
All right, Kevin, that's a good place to leave it. Hold it right there. We're at the bottom of the hour. We'll be right back. My guest is Kevin Ryerson. I'm Art Bell, and this is Coast to Coast AM.
From east of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. West of the Rockies, including Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. Call Art at 1-800-618-8255. Or call Art on the wildcard line at area code 702-727-1295. This is Coast to Coast AM from the Kingdom of Nye.
By the way, I want to thank Larry King for having me as a guest this past Friday evening on Larry King Live for the entire hour. It was certainly a pleasure. It was a grand show, and I'm now looking forward to Larry's coming on my program. That should be something, and it will happen in the next couple of months or so, within the next couple of months. But it was a grand time, and I got to peruse the streets of Hollywood. Larry's a great guy, and it really was a good show. And by the way, those of you who didn't see it and would like to, I believe we have a link on our site, and CNN, for a fee, I don't know what it is, will provide you with a videotape. So we did that on this last Friday night. Kevin Ryerson is here, good friend of Shirley MacLaine's, and in his own right, an intuitive, and we are discussing intuitives and prophecy. And we'll get back to him in just a moment. If you will stay right where you are, keep that radio right where you've got it. Okay, back now to Kevin Ryerson. And Kevin, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Kevin, you sort of got up to a discussion of really Y2K and our technological dependence, and that we were probably, according to many people, in for a bit of a fall. Do you see that as the Y2K looming business at the end of the year?
I'm of the opinion that it's an authentic concern, and
so am I.
And I think in particular in things in the medical industry, communications, and of course anything that's associated with military tie-ins are a concern. Now, fortunately, apparently some of those issues are being addressed. From my own sort of like consensus process, it appeared to be that one of the concerns is not as though that a collapse may occur universally, for instance, but more so that this particular bug may continue for some time past the January 1st deadline when it's supposed to kick in. I have been working with some people on what they feel might be one of the solutions if they can get the man-hours to more or less bring about the programming, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that probably will be the most sensitive is the grid systems. In other words, the power
electric
in
power.
the city.
Yes.
Exactly.